Hello, everyone. Welcome and thanks for your patience. And but before I introduce Tejas, I just wanted to talk about a very very hot startup, which was the hottest startup in the Silicon Valley before the dot com bust of 2000. This company, the startup raised $800 million from Sequoia, SoftBank, and several other well-known investors, and it actually went public for $1.2 billion in 1999. And when you compare this with companies like Amazon, which were also, started in 94, 95, it IPO'd at $440 million. So clearly, this startup was the shining example of the new era, the internet era. Unfortunately, this company's died within a few months of going IPO. And the startup, the people who have been around would remember was Webvan, and it was building an inventory-led online grocery business, which is exactly what now Bigbasket has successfully done. The scar that this failure left was such a huge scar that for next 10 years there was no company that attempted to do grocery business, right? And if I'm not wrong, I think Bigbasket was one of the first companies to defy this conventional wisdom of it being impossible to do inventory led business. And they started in 2011, one of the earliest companies which actually started before Instacart and before several other companies which eventually did make it happen. To find out how Bigbasket make it happen, we can have no better person than Tejas, who incidentally was the first employee. He joined Bigbasket right after along with the founding team. He was the first person to join them. For the last 9 years, he's worn many hats. He was in the beginning was leading engineering, then started handling the back-end supply chain systems, and more recently he heads the design and product at Bigbasket. Right, Tejas, you've been with Basket for right from the very beginning, and I know it's a very tough journey. Not only because grocery is a very low margin business, but also because you have to handle fruits and vegetables, which have very short shelf life. Right? Given all the different challenges that you would have faced during this 9-year journey, can you please tell us what you think was the most important aspect of the journey?
2011, end of 2011. Let me first talk about Spinach. A Spinach's life in 2011. So, even today, if you go out and buy spinach from the roadside vendors, let me talk about the journey. We talk about customer journeys, on product. It's one of the most favorite terms. You'll keep hearing customer journey, customer journey. So spinach goes through, a day long, a harvest time. The farmer picks it up. It goes to a neighborhood village, it gets aggregated. It goes to a local APMC market, which potentially takes half a day or so. From there, it travels to, there's an auction, which probably takes a day or so more. And then it comes to a local city hub. You have one such, within a city, you have 2-3 such hubs. In Bangalore, we have it at Yeshwanthpur, for example. Yeah. And from there, it percolates down to the roadside cart vendors and so on and so forth. Right. So this journey takes almost 3 to 4 days. Today, Bigbasket, this same spinach today goes through, a farmer gets to know at 10:30 p.m. in the night about harvesting X amount of spinach. 6 a.m. he harvests that. By 10 a.m. it reaches a collection center, which we have very close to a village. By 8 or 8:30 a.m., 10 a.m. it gets picked up, goes to a Bigbasket warehouse closer to the just outskirts of a city, and this is typically around 50 to 100 kilometers, such a warehouse from the collection center. These are all villages in a radius of 50 to 100 kilometers. And then from here, it goes to the local spokes or small warehouses, which potentially could be located, maybe half an hour away. So around 4 p.m., 5 p.m., it's potentially closer to these hubs. So for an evening delivery, the 6 p.m. harvested spinach is delivered around, say, 8:39. And then if someone decides to cook for this delivery at 9 p.m., or maybe even take it as breakfast, have it for breakfast, cook up something, you're still talking about 24 hours. So
Impressive.
in the last 9 years, I think the biggest joy that we in Bigbasket get is we have reduced this 4 or 5 day shelf life of a spinach, which
Mm-hmm.
typically gets rotten by this time. Today, most consumers on Bigbasket get this spinach between 24 to 32 hours, I would say. We've solved this piece. It's been a long journey. I will talk about it more in this conversation, Ajay.
Perfect. This is very interesting. It's not a customer journey, but it's a spinach journey, and taking care of spinach right from the time it's harvested to the time it lands up on the consumer's table. Right. So I think what I would do is actually to while we talk about this, your big basket story, I would actually maybe refer back to the web van, because I think what happened was because of its huge failure, right, it became a classic case study. I mean, everyone who had to go through the e-commerce and understand the challenges of e-commerce goes back and looks at that. And one of the persons who was Peter Allen, who was and actually an ex-Oracle person. I was also at Oracle at that time. He used to head technology for Webvan, and he identified two main things that went wrong with them. Right? It'll be good to understand how Bigbasket handled them. So first problem that he mentions is that Webvan was offering what he called a whole foods experience, while the users wanted the Safeway prices. Right? If we map it to the Indian equivalents, it means that Webvan was trying to offer Nature's Basket-like experience, but at the big bazaar prices. Right? And I think it's understandable. This because grocery is a area that every customer potentially needs, right? So question then becomes, who was Bigbasket going after initially, and what were the initial thoughts to pick that target audience?
Sure. We started off with a mission statement, Ajay. Our mission was to be one of the top 3 grocery players in India. Top 3 grocery, and mind you, I did not use the word online here,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
We didn't want to be an online or offline. We never differentiated. It came out as an outcome of the mission statement. So if I were to say, the mission statement was purely one of the top 3. Now, how do we looked at our channels, and we clearly wanted to differentiate ourselves as an only online channel.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And that bore out as in the form of a vision statement that we will be an online company, and that percolated down to a product strategy too. We will be an online company, and there were 2 other things that came out as part of it. Looking at the Webvan experience, as you spoke about,
Right.
the 2 other vision statements was, we will be the best in customer experience going forward. We'll be one of the brands that customers would love. It was part of our mission. Customers should just say, "Hey, I trust Bigbasket because they deliver food."
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, we will do it sustainably. We will never compromise on you can say hyper growth or just putting money where it should be just to grow for the sake of it.
Yeah.
We will grow sustainably and economically so that we ultimately become a profitable business at scale.
Mm-hmm.
This is how we started off, and with this mission and vision in place, we looked. We went through that entire journey, and in that journey, it turns out that there were multiple stages. There's a 0 to 1 stage, which was the early fitment stage. We call it. I call it market product fit. Everyone says product market. I call it market product because we looked at the market, understood the kind of segments that we are talking about, and adapted a product accordingly in our journey. And we had to adapt it multiple times in the 0 to 1 stage, which is the early stages of the company, where you had less money, less resources. You really have to get it right. Yeah. And then you have the 1 to 10, where is the stable phase, where you're trying to get in onboard more customers through more use cases opened up for the product side. Yeah. And then you have the 10 to 100, which is the scale phase, where you just have to get the masses, right? And at each of these places, you need to take care of so many variables and take care of each of the segments and their expectations and their demands. Yeah. So that's how we have evolved, Ajay. And so these were the early days. And correct. It's been a great journey going.
And I think going back to the question, were you trying to build a big bazaar, or were you trying to build a Nature's Basket? Was there some targeting or
we started off as being you can say somewhere between a big bazaar and a Nature's Basket. Okay. Because we were being online, we always wanted to we started looking off at convenience. Our early adopters were always convenience seekers. And now we have grown pretty much to the masses. So we have evolved to a phase where we are now probably a big bazaar, but or even bigger. I mean, it's a completely new segment that we are entering. We are a mix of both Nature's Basket, Big Bazaar, and everything you can say.
Agreed. I think it's important that you're pointing out that in the 0 to 1 phase, you are picking the customers who are seeking convenience. And once that once you scale beyond that 1 to 10 stage and 10 to 100, then you expanded the footprint to cover other segments of users as well. Right? So yeah, got it. So let's get a little deeper into the 0 to 1 stage of the journey, right? Because I think that's where, like you said, Bigbasket established the market product fit, right? If you could just tell us a little bit more about what did you focus on during this stage? How did you build the market product fit?
Sure. We picked out a few customers, or let's say a few apartment complexes in East Bangalore, Whitefield area.
Okay.
And we really understood their needs and wants. And I'm separating both of them. I'm separating what is a need and what is a want,
right,
and what do customers prefer. Right? At the end of the day, this separation is very important to differentiate. And we went out for the need. Right? Customers in this segment really needed a convenience of getting their groceries home delivered, which included fresh, of course. And we spoke to a lot of these customers. These customers had phone numbers of our founders, of a lot of technical folks inside in the early stages.
Yeah.
And we spoke to them. There were regular conversation, and we were solving that problem. And over the course of the journey, the segment expanded, the market kept evolving, which is why the fitment never stayed. It kept evolving. We never reached a state where, we have reached market product fit. It evolved. It evolved every month. Okay, we have solved this problem, and then there's another problem.
Right.
For instance, the spinach that we were talking about, the early folks, they were early adopters, so they would be okay, if your spinach is slightly off, they are more forgiving because they value the convenience.
Yeah, makes sense.
But over a period of time, as the segments evolved in the 0 to 1 stage, these guys wanted a very high quality spinach, which means our supply chains had to evolve a lot.
Yeah.
So if you ask me, what did we do different in the 0 to 1 phase, and that could be helpful, a lot of help for the audience. We did a lot. We did more stuff. We did a lot of stuff by doing a lot of less stuff. Now, in a way, we got more out of less by ruthlessly prioritizing what is needed for a customer, for the segment that we are talking about. Example here. I don't know if any of you guys had seen the website in the earlier heydays in 2011-12. Very simple, just a simple price and some image, add to cart, and then a checkout page. You can say it was built on Magento. I mean, we just didn't care. What we were focused on is the supply chain. It's about figuring out how do I deliver this spinach at the right price, with the right convenience, and with the delivery experience which a customer just is so happy about. A customer, a delivery boy goes and says, "Sir, is this fresh?" That is the delight that your neighborhood roadside vendor could give.
Yeah.
So we were focused on the needs of the customer, and there was always a feedback loop all through. We would talk to our customers, get these insights. We would also have collective data from a platform itself. We would merge the data that comes from the platform, get these customer feedback, correlate, and then go and take the next set of steps. Right? That's how we got to know the next set of customers, in fact, wanted a 90-minute delivery for topping up their orders, and they were not really happy with getting a delivery a day or so late.
Right.
So a key takeaway in my view in that early journey was that we only focused on how to solve the customer's need. I'm saying not a want, because want can corrupt your entire thinking. We just focused on that, got the feedback, and ruthlessly prioritized solving for those, and at the same time kept evolving our market product fitment.
Got it. And I think it's very important that you're pointing out that there are choices that you had to make, right? You had to, consciously say that the CX, the customer experience, is more important, and the UX, which is the website and other things, you will come to that later. And because I'm sure there were, fewer resources, the teams were small. and you could not have done everything, right? And I think the second part here is, I think grocery by definition is a an activity that happens fairly frequently, right? And somehow you have to get people to start ordering again and again. Is there something that you can think about, specifically you did to build this habit so that people can come back to the product and start ordering more and more frequently?
Yes. So building this habit came naturally. It's a good question.
Mhm.
By constantly taking that feedback and creating that loop,
Right.
we were learning a lot from what customers really needed. Uh,
Got
Build
it.
accordingly.
Mhm.
Uh, Test it out and measure, and then iterate on this. And that loop is very valuable, because then ultimately customers will come back to you. Hey, I love your service, I really like your service, but can you please help? This pricing is a little bit high, or this spinach, I just got it rotten, can you take care of it?
Yeah.
So that change in the way people interacted with us, gave us a feeling, so we were constantly looking for that loop. And it is very important for product managers and leaders to keep validating their own product with the audience at all points in time. So this habit building is necessary, whatever product you take. Even in my earlier avatar, if you look at a product which is just very transitory by nature, people come in and go,
Yeah.
because you have not, it means that you have probably not validated the need. People should attach yourself emotionally to the product,
Uh-huh.
and that's what builds that connect and the habit.
Got it. Got it. And we'll come to that very soon, because I do want to talk about the want part of it, that you're saying that you pushed it off, right? I think it's important to ask you, when did you start picking up the wants? But before that, I think I'll jump to the next stage, which you refer to as the 1 to 10 stage. And I think 1 to 10 stage, in some sense, is perhaps the toughest part of the journey, right? Because although your company or your startup has established the market product fit, but I think as a result of that, what happens is lot many options open up. There are a lot of features to build, a lot of things to improve, right? And at the same time, company is growing very, very rapidly, right? So given that, one of the challenges that companies face, and again, I'll go back to Webvan. Peter Allen talks about this. Now, the second reason why Webvan failed was because they spent too much time engineering and building the backend platforms, right? And I wanted to ask you, how did Bigbasket avoid these mistakes? How did you prioritize various options?
Great. Um, So the 1 to 10 phase is very unique and challenging. The 0 to 1, probably needs one person, a founder, and one co-architect, technical guy who solves the problem. The 1 to 10 is where you have, in a sense, you have a good sense of customers. Customers like you, they are loyal to you, but you're growing quickly.
Yeah.
And this opens up with the feedback loop. You get to understand there are multiple other product areas you need to work on,
Mhm.
and that at that point in time you will get multiple signals. So prioritizing at this point in time becomes a huge challenge. So
Mhm.
the framework that we used internally, I have 10 requests and I potentially have just a small engineering team. I have to pick just two. So
Yeah.
we divided into two bins. One is a customer impact, and attach it to it a small you can call it a sub bullet or sub point under it, which is a business impact, right? And then a next bin is the effort. So when I have to prioritize, I'll take all these 10 features, I
Mhm.
put some numbers on it. So if I do this particular feature and I assume I understand the outcome of it, how do I quantify measuring this particular outcome by doing this feature? So out of 10, maybe the customer impact is 6 and maybe the business impact is 8, right? And I put an effort in terms of S, M, L, XL, these shirt sizes.
Got it.
And I put all these 10 features and attach some numbers on it. And this is a very, very important call, that you need to be very, very fair. You need to be very, very objective about it.
Right.
So when you look at this chart, when you do this prioritization, it makes life so easy, because then you are easily able to pick out the one or two things that
Mhm.
as a business you need to solve for. And also it brings in an element of buying with the founders and stakeholders.
Mhm.
It also means that you can go back and tell them, hey, you know what, I know we have to do these 10, these are all the 10 requests, But we believe these are the two most important things that we should solve for, looking at the business impact that we believe and the effort that it takes. Now, here it is also important to sort this out in a manner, because if you have to pick something, the approach or mechanism should be what is the lowest effort to get the maximum impact. Why
Right.
will I pick the one and two? Because I would bin it under, I will put say 2 days of effort, and hey, this impact looks huge.
Yeah.
So that quadrant, I would say, if you just put this in a quadrant,
Yeah.
the low effort, high impact is the one which naturally everyone chooses and ends up choosing. The
Yeah.
high impact, high effort is probably a lot more strategic. It needs a lot more thinking and probably more detailed discussion to see if you have to do. In
Yeah.
fact, the others you don't even venture into. Anything which is a high effort, even with a low effort or even low impact, you don't even touch it. Right.
Got it.
So this framework helped us even understand how to proceed. One very interesting thing I want to add here, Ajay, is that sometimes there's some gut instinct or some kind of a data that there's a hypothesis that gets built up.
Yeah.
So you might want to test it out. You might want to understand if this might even work, and the effort is relatively low to test it out. So at this point in time, we can take a very conscious, judicious call saying, hey, you know what, while I want to do this, I think doing this experiment would be useful. And that can be in the form of surveys, calling up customers, going out and doing some kind of sales pitch and trying to get a sense from a customer. So there are a lot of ways that one can talk. I'll talk about that slightly later if you get the time, but there are mechanisms to do that. So I just wanted to add this prioritization framework, which has been very effective for me internally for the team at Bigbasket.
Got it. And that's very important, because I think clearly the important part is that you're saying that business impact was also factored in, because I think one of the notorious things about grocery business is a very low margin business. Right. And I think one of the key things here is to be operationally very, very efficient, and anything you do has to have a bottom line impact. And I think this must have been one of the secrets, by which you were able to unlock this, cut out a lot of work that normally delays and, adds overheads. But by prioritizing very effectively, I guess you were able to, pick the right ones to do and, roll out the features quickly. Right. I think the other part I do want to go back to now, is the thing that you talked about, the wants part. And I'm guessing in the 1 to 10 stage, one of the important things is to make sure that the existing users, the old users, right, the 0 to 1 stage users, the loyal users, they're happy, right? And I guess the want comes from, you talked about emotionally connecting with them. So maybe if you could share a little bit about that, what was the thinking? How was that done within Bigbasket?
Yeah. So with the feedback loops, we would understand a customer, a want part of it. Let's say I need an example would be I need organic spinach. Going back to a favorite vegetable, right? In the earlier stages, 0 to 1, we didn't even have a mechanism to understand, and we had to prioritize. So organic spinach, you can call it a differentiator, but do we solve that problem now? Put that effort now and solve for it now? No. It's the same template that we spoke about. Is it necessary? No. So this want in these old customers from the 0 to 1 stage, when we entered the 1 to 10 stage, these customers started demanding their organic spinaches a lot more. Now here is when you decide, hey, you know what? I mean, these are our loyal customers. We need to retain them. They've stayed with us. So let us see if this want has suddenly become a need for them, right? This is an evolved market now. So a lot of these customers have taken for granted their original needs, and we have solved for it also. Correct. The want has translated into the need, and this is where we look at it with a fresh lens and say, hey, in my retention charter, in my retention why, if I have to solve a retention problem, these are the necessary needs which were wants earlier. I need to solve for this. So I go back, look at it. Hey, how do we solve for the organic spinach problem? So the teams go back, understand whether we can source this, what would be the supply chain, and fix it. So that's the kind of translation, and which is why I go back to my original thought that the market needs to be understood in terms of the needs and the wants, and it is a rapidly evolving market.
Got it. And so it's a very important point. I think what you're bringing out is that the user expectations keep changing, right? And the wants becomes needs over time because they have kind of started taking the freshness of the spinach for granted, right? Because you have continuously, repeatedly delivered on that promise, right? So suddenly they can start expecting more from Bigbasket, and which is where the wants translate into needs.
Yes. And just to add, Ajay, the current need from the oldest customers, these are 2012 customers,
Mhm.
is to have a no packaging solution and a traceability
Mm.
solution. Basically, I go back and I want to know who is the farmer who could potentially, I want to know where this my food source is, right? So
Mm.
this keeps evolving. I mean, we get to hear these insights and we keep looking into it. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Got it. I think you have also talked a little bit about the WWWH framework. I'm just wondering, in some of your earlier talks, you have talked about that. Where does that get applied? And
Yeah.
maybe a little bit
Sounds
background on that.
yeah, sounds familiar to WWF or WWE.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, so this we evolved this internally, and in simple words, the WWWH framework is the who, the why, the what, and the how. Right.
Okay.
So internally in Bigbasket, we keep using these terms, and specifically,
Mhm.
simply put, who is your market? We spoke quite a lot about it. Understanding your segment, what are their needs, the why. This is a very important thing to for me that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
The why is basically is to understand that need in the simplest possible manner. We spoke about it.
Yeah.
Getting a problem statement clearly enunciated in a form which helps us evolve a solution is important, and a lot of product managers and organizations don't spend enough time on understanding this.
Got it.
Person A has a problem, person B has a problem.
Mhm.
The manifestation of the problem could be a single thing which we are not able to grasp because of the way how people communicate, how people are not clear in terms of where the problem lies. Oh,
Got
I have this particular issue, I have that particular issue, I have X particular issue. All these issues, do they percolate down to a single why problem,
it. Uh-huh.
is something that as an organization, as a product manager, we need to get down to it. This takes a lot of user research. I'm bringing in a very important, the important value of understanding and doing user research comes here,
Mhm.
because your questions are sharp enough to go to the bottom of the well and get this gem. Okay,
Got
this is the statement, this is the problem we need to solve.
it. Mhm.
And lot of early stage companies, the trying to get their product market fit, actually they, at least my personal belief is, they don't get this why correct,
Can you give
right?
an example of that, Tejas? Just to make it more concrete.
Yeah. So let's take an example. I have a particular issue where a lot of customers keep coming into my homepage, right? And they new customers,
Mhm.
and then they go and visit the fruits and vegetable section, and they stop. They don't shop anymore. These are new customers.
Okay.
So I'm seeing a huge amount of churn. Now I'm looking at this data, and I'm immediately going to a solution that, hey, let's put more banners, let's put pricing. So you
Got it.
put pricing, put banners. This is available at this, and maybe you see a slight blip, and then you're mistaken. Hey, I think I've solved it, but you have not necessarily solved for it, because it's not the conversion that you really expect, but you live with it. You keep doing more and more and more.
Mhm.
Now, what could potentially happen is, if you don't understand the hypothesis on why these customers who are coming to your fruits and vegetables section are not churning out, you will continue seeing this and you'll keep building but not knowing the problem.
Got it.
So, for example, it could be, it could be that your return policy is not enunciated well. Maybe just putting out a banner talking about, hey, you know what, buy and return it at any point in time, don't worry. Or if your cash on delivery is not clearly called out in the earlier experiences. So maybe
Mhm.
people associate cash on delivery with the trust that we need to build. So if I have to pay via digital medium and fresh fruits and vegetables, they're very hesitant, right?
Got it. Got it.
So there are other hypotheses too. You can
Got
build out some 10 hypotheses,
it. Mhm.
but going deeper into it and understanding that this is the reason why your customers are not buying from you, and getting to the sense that the customers, for example, are not buying fruits and vegetables
Yeah.
because they want it within 45 minutes, for example.
Mhm.
That's the reason they churned out.
Got
Getting that clarity is the most important, Ajay.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you. The question is, what did Bigbasket do to ruthlessly deprioritize in its growth stage to become the category leader?
Yeah. Very tough question to answer here, but as I called out, we had a very simple website for the first 1 or 2 years. We did not invest into some fantastic customer experience, which became a need maybe in the 1 to 10 stages. We were very clearly focused on solving the delivery experience to build that trust. We were solving our supply chain problems to give you that fresh spinach and giving options like cash on delivery. With that done, we didn't go the app way, for example, as early as we would have. Like, we didn't invest in those. We just built a very simple website for that matter. So these are very hard calls. We also did not grow to categories where we are today. We just focused on a regular small supermarket which has, say, 2000 SKUs. We just focused on that and really delivered on that experience, on delivering that fantastic experience, and ensuring our customers are happy with it. And hence that made it a lot easy. The prioritization framework I spoke about also made it a lot easy, Nachiket.
God. Yeah, makes sense. Second question has been asked by Priyanka, which is that what is your discovery process for understanding and scoping up new wants and needs from the end users, and then how do you prioritize them?
Sure. So we have a lot of mechanisms to go about and try to, we speak to a lot of customers. Even today, my team and a lot of folks within Bigbasket, have their connects with customers. We would have spoken to them at some point if they are facing some really critical issue. And by trying to understand this through and through as a conversation, as someone within product who's talking to his customers more and more, in my view, that's the best mechanism to really understand the pain. For this, a product manager or a designer has to be really empathetic to understand the problem well, right? So this is a face-to-face interaction. Secondly, it could also be through multiple surveys, through calling. I think in essence, going back to your customer and having the right intent that, hey, listen, I'm here to solve your problems. I just want you to talk. I'm here to listen. That is very important for a customer. It builds trust. Customers understand, hey, you know what? Can you do this? This is a pain point. Can you do this? They vent, right? They like your product so much. There's so much of a connect. So they literally vent it out, and you have to listen. You have to understand their pain point, not be defensive, and then take all these learnings back, put it out in the prioritization framework, and then go back to these customers. I think this is something we also, typically, I don't know if others do it, but we do go back and say, hey, you know what? I've heard you, and we are solving for it in some form or manner. You might have to wait for a bit. This is not coming anytime soon, and be very, very honest about it with the right intent. So this organic spinach, we would go back and say, hey, you know what? We are not able to do this. You might have to go out and buy it. So set the right expectations. Go back and set it in the right way so that customers are not frustrated with you. We still have 2012 customers who come back and say, hey, you know what? I've been waiting for this for so long. And then we go back and say, okay, no worries. We'll wait for you.
We'll wait, yeah. No, but I think it's a very good point. I think it's been also, said by others that the good thing is that your loyal customers are wonderfully and eternally dissatisfied. They will always, because they love you, they like, they connect with you. They tell you reality, what they really want, right? And I think that's a beautiful, feature. I'm just curious, how do you overlay that with the data? Because you're collecting lots of data in the back end also, right? In your discovery and prioritization process, how do you, mix the two?
Yeah. So in these surveys, etc., suppose we realize that spinaches are returned a lot more. I see spinach when I look at it. I put it in a chart and in an Excel and see, hey, what is the most returned item? And suppose I find spinach in number 3. In my customer surveys, I go back and when I talk to customers, my question would be very pointed. Hey, what in your, when you buy fruits and vegetables, what do you like most and what do you not like most?
Yeah.
If I end up, correlating, this, if I hear spinach, I end up correlating it and, hey, something's wrong with my spinach supply chain. Maybe let's go and revisit it. right? It's not easy when I say it so simply. I think there are just so many factors. There are price factors, price changes on a day on an everyday basis, but the pattern emerges. I think somewhere you have to take a pattern and put it out and say, hey, this 10% of my customers have problems in the fruits and vegetable section, and maybe 5% there is on spinach. So can we solve the 5%? Right? That's the way I would look at it.
How do you see the grocery delivery space panning out with all the on-demand grocery delivery by the likes of Swiggy, I guess Instamart, Dunzo, etc.? Do you have an edge over other, which gives customers better experience?
Sure. This is the 10 to 100 phase.
Yeah.
Now, grocery is a very high repeat behavior, and we have seen this. Customers who stick with you, you build that connect, and they like you. It's very hard to take away, a channel, right? It's very hard to take it away from someone that someone goes buys from that same kirana store. They buy it over the all through the years, right?
Yeah.
So it's not easy to take a customer away, but the market is big, Ajay. The market is just too huge. We have not even scratched the surface.
Yeah.
And as an organization, not just me, we believe that this is very, very important to have more players to open up the market, create the habit. We spoke about it. The habit needs to be inculcated in everyone that they feel good about buying it online. And all these players coming in is just good for everyone. The market opens up. We learn, and we are not complacent too. We are hearing our customers. If someone has churned from platform A to platform B, maybe we have something which maybe we don't have something which they have, and then the question is why. So go deeper, talk to some of these customers, understand and evolve your product.
Got it. And I guess at some level, the back-end system that you have built, the supply chain systems, obviously also give you the edge, right? And that hopefully will also, play out in the long run. So
Yes.
we'll see how it shapes up. So it's a huge business. I think grocery is one of the largest businesses to be in. So, and it's not a winner-take-all business either. So there is obviously multiple players can survive and thrive. So hopefully many such large companies will get built. So what are the top three factors on which the retention depends in your business?
Fundamentally at the core, we always look at it from a customer experience, and that's been in our DNA. What customer is the empty chair in the room, right? So ensuring that is a very key element. Number two, keep sensing patterns in terms of with new competition coming through, people churning through. Keep sensing for your business where this problem could potentially lie. Like from a Bigbasket perspective, building when I take quality, when I take about fruits and vegetables quality or quality of the experience finally, for that, if I continue doing it on an ongoing basis, that fundamentally determines my retention. Number two, pricing. So a lot of customers who potentially could come to Bigbasket for the first time because of some great promotion could churn out the next time because they find a better promotion in some other platform. So in my view, these customers are just there for the short term, and it's not worth it to spend so much money on this because they will never be loyal to you. So we assume internally that these customers are not going to be forever with you. So how do you build at least from a product perspective, build enough price perception so that a customer at least believes that you are not too far off. That also keeps your value proposition that, hey, you know what, I'm going to give you a strong, this is my service guarantee, is my strong value proposition, but I'm also going to be reasonably competitive, if not the most competitive. Now, it's also perception. One interesting thing I wanted to share is a lot of our customers, in fact, feel even today that Bigbasket is not as competitive pricing wise.
Okay.
And we look at our data, we have always been very, very competitive. I mean, we do benchmarking and we've always been very competitive. And we have seen the pattern change over the years. A lot of customers who actually do comparison shopping, ultimately that perception starts building and you need that right nudges to call it out at different places.
God.
So that essentially is the way we look at retention. Very deep focus. This is a very high trust business. So retention is key. You won't survive if people don't come to your platform.
Correct. This is a huge, habit business. If you lose them, I think there's no survival here. What is the difference between customer impact and business impact?
Right. Good question, Paul. So when we put this in a prioritization, when we solve this prioritization template problem, I would say there are a lot of features. For example, let me give you an example to make it very clear. If I am able to, if I have a widget where I can make a simple ease of use. So on Bigbasket, you might find a very quick navigation to find your current orders. It's a small thing at the bottom and what we call the assistant. So you are able to navigate your open orders and quickly perform some actions, right? Now here, what we do is it's more of a very simple way for navigation. Instead of having 2-3 clicks to erstwhile go to that particular page. But here, the customer impact, the ease of use makes your customers want to come back to you. Right? I would make it a 8 out of 10 because it makes a customer's life easy. They just think, hey, my orders are here, so they just do a single tap and reach that page. Let me talk about the business impact. By taking a customers to this kind of a page, what we call the order assistant, I have specific actions that a customer can perform there in the form of, hey, add more items to your order for free, right? So the impact of this is a few customers would discover that particular link and add more items, which means I could increase my basket sizes to a lot more than what it is today. Then there is a self-service element to it where if a customer just wants to quickly cancel his order or perform an action, they don't necessarily have to call customer service, which also costs a bit to the business, right? Yeah. So it's a self-service and everything is just automated, right? So we save costs. There is a business impact in terms of solving some of these, increasing basket or reducing your self-service, the pain that a customer goes through to call up a customer service. Right? So customer impact is maybe an 8 out of 10. Business impact in this case would be a 4 or a 5, I would say.
Got it. Other than user research, do you perform A/B testing or other painted door tests to validate features?
Yeah, so the 10 to 100, I think A/B testing becomes, we literally forked out an A/B testing or a growth mode, where you only do experiments, and then you have a production line where features which are vetted and validated enter the production pipeline, I would say. So look at it this way: I'm experimenting 10 features in using A/B testing. 10 hypotheses are being vetted. And you have to again be ruthless here because you can't take in everything. Even if you get a 0.1% bump, you nip it off. You cut off that feature. You'll not do this, right? In those 10 experiments. So typically what happens out of 10 experiments, typically one of them passes the cut and it's something really impactful. We take that and push it through our production pipeline. So A/B testing, especially at scale, because we will not be able to push in every possible thing that business wants into a production pipeline. Your code base gets very complex and your platform won't be able to handle it. So again, less is more. Less code is better for business. We have kept our systems to what it was circa 2013-14 by nipping off features which we don't need and only putting anything into production is thoroughly vetted in terms of the why. I mean, why does it even make sense to do this?
Got it. Very interesting. I think that's one of the very important points that people don't have the a mechanism to remove features, and which makes the product more and more complicated. Right. So ability to remove features that are not being used to keep the product simple is actually very critical.
It's very hard to say no to people.
I think there's a attachment and ownership. So I think it's very difficult. It's a difficult conversation, but it's important for customer experience point of view. Perishable e-commerce. What is more important, product for end consumers versus product for optimizing operations, which is supply chain and other things?
I could spend an entire session talking about perishable e-commerce. They call it the holy grail. I don't know if you guys search for holy grail of e-commerce, is to solve the spinach problem, the perishable e-commerce. So there are just too many factors here. You're talking about availability. People want their spinach to be available. You cannot dump out of 100 spinach that you buy. You can't. It doesn't make sense to dump 10 spinach. You'll lose money. You'll burn so much. It's the unit economics doesn't make sense. Then the pricing, people will haggle for that 50 paise in the spinach. They'll go and 29 rupees and 29.50 paise. People will go for the 29 paise, right? So and demand forecasting, the cost, the packaging, it's just a very hard problem to solve. And to answer your question, the way we look at it is it has to be a balance of both. If you don't fix your supply chain, this business will keep burning and you will never be able to make money. It will burn more than any other business, frankly, to tell you. I mean, I told about the spinach story in the early days, 6 days, so much thrown away, just doesn't make sense. So you have to be very conscious, take feedback from your customers, keep tweaking your supply chain, get your demand forecasting right, and get your unit economics in place. Again, calling it out, one of the hardest problems in any commerce, I would say.
Yeah, no, completely. And that's why I think I picked the web ban example. I think the way they really failed was actually not focusing enough on that, right? And actually spending lots of time. And they did actually a lot of good things in they automated all of their warehouses. So they did a lot of good things, a lot of good, like Kibak robots came out of that. But yeah, I think it's critically important. The back end supply chain is the most important. And I think solving that perhaps is the foundation on which you can actually build a sustainable business. During the pandemic, what biases did you consciously avoid, or what did you do to separate the user needs versus user wants?
Pandemic changed everything. People just wanted their essentials, and they would go all out to even hoard it if necessary, right? So one of the key things we did during the pandemic is no one is looking out for your very eclectic tea or exotic tea for that matter, or something which beauty product, which your perfumes or deodorant. People are very careful with their money. So we nipped off the entire assortment. We just bought it to such a minimal, like a supermarket kind of an assortment with just for essentials. And there we ramped up our capacity in terms of delivering that as fast, as best as possible, not even fast. So our slot times would go for 4 5 days. uh, what did customers need and what did customers want? Customers needed their essentials. They wanted rice, tur dal, atta for them to sustain and survive. That's the kind of user need. What did they want? Yeah, if you're giving me that eclectic tea, I'll be happy, right? But so we clearly differentiated the need and the want, adapted our supply chain, learned from them, and in fact, customers were very happy. When we delivered those items to them, because they at least realized for the essentials they can trust us, right? Because of this behavior change, we adapted to that behavior change, differentiated needs and wants, and delivered what they needed.
Perfect. Awesome. And thank you very much.